Married men. How did you meet your wife, and how did you approach her? I like to call it the frog in the boiling pot method. We were friends. After meeting through mutual friends, she liked me but didn't want to like me. I needed to grow up a little bit, honestly. And then a few years later started hanging out regularly. After a couple months one day, while we were hanging out, I was like, are we dating? Because I'd like to. Happily married 12.5 years and counting. At my son's wedding, the officiant, a longtime friend of my son and his wife, said this. I was there when M and D met. M immediately said, I'm going to marry her someday. It took him 7 years to wear her down. Mazel tov. I knew her younger sister, who invited me to a Christmas party at their house. I was 16. The older sister was a tiny, pretty little blonde. Met her there, but she started going out with another friend. 3 months later she dumped him. We all hung out at her open house, meant to keep we juvenile delinquents off the street. Myself and 4 or 5 of my friends were standing in a circle outside, smoking, and she stepped out of the hall. One of the guys pulled her into the circle. She was pretty, remember, and we started pushing her guy to guy to guy around the circle. We were 16. Remember, lol. When she got to me, she threw her arms around my neck and wouldn't let go. Even I can take that hint. She was my first GF. That was in 1971. She is downstairs right now, drinking tea. Congratulations on your ongoing love affair with your wife. Set up by a mutual friend who had been trying to get us together. One night, she invited me over to dinner. I was living in barracks and doing volunteer work, and simultaneously invited over her friend from work. Came for spaghetti. Left with the love of my life. From meeting to marriage, 35 days, no pregnancy involved. In a couple weeks we crossed 27 years. I'm a X-ray tech. I was working in the cath lab at the time. I was sitting in the break room watching a little Springer when a new nurse walked in. I said, hi, what's your name? I'm lousy with names, so I'll probably forget it a couple times. So don't be surprised if I ask again tomorrow. 6 months later, after being ganged up on by the ladies of the cath lab who all decided we'd be perfect for each other, we went on our first date. Our 22nd anniversary is September 22nd. She's now retired. I've got 1 year, 11 months, and 21 days, but who's counting, to go until I join her. College. Saw her, approached her, the rest is history. I met my wife in our college chemistry class. We bonded over our mutual dislike of chemistry. Sounds like you two have great chemistry together. I never believed in fate until I met my wife. I was in a bad relationship that fucked me mentally for about 2 years. During that time I decided to move into an apartment with my best friend, and we started going to a new gym where she worked at. For 2 years we would always chat, and both got into relationships during those 2 years, but always kept it cordial and platonic. We both ended our short relationships around the same time. Right when COVID hit, I saw she made some ridiculous post on Facebook that I had to comment on. I knew it would garner a reaction, since it was at the beginning of COVID and couldn't go on traditional dates. All we did was hang out and go on long walks, getting to know each other. 6 months and 1 dog later we are engaged. 1 year after we are married. And now she's pregnant with our first child. Couldn't be more lucky. I was running a social meetup. She started coming to our events. After a couple of months of her coming, I asked several of the other women I knew at the event, including the leadership team, if they felt it was appropriate to ask her out. They all said, it's clear she's into you. Dummy. Just ask her. Now we have 2 kids. That kinda stopped us being able to go to those events anymore. We worked at the same company. Once I left, she came after me. It's all on her, and I'm happy she was persistent. I was chatting with my now partner before we got together. I got the worst case of anxiety and was sure I was going to blow it. So I made a dumb excuse and literally ran away. He understandably assumed I wasn't interested. Luckily I got the courage to ask him out properly later on. I had broke up with the girl I was seeing, and I had bought 2 tickets to a ball planned for 2 months later. As the date approached I was not having much luck and asked a friend if any of her friends would like a free night out at a swanky ball in London. Hotel room, separate, paid for. She got back to me a few days later and said, remember C. Weasel's wife's name from last New Year's Eve party? I said yes, and she said well she remembers you and would love to go. So I met my now wife at an underground station, carried her bags to the hotel, and settled her in her room. I went to my room and got dressed, then met her when it was time to head to the venue. She looked amazing. We hit it off. We had an amazing night, including accidentally breaking the bank at a charity fun casino and carrying a magnum of champagne across Tower Bridge at 3 AM. I didn't want to blow it, so was the perfect gentleman and escorted her to her room, kissed her goodnight, and went to my room. I woke up to a note under the door thanking me for a wonderful night and asking if I'd like to meet up the following week. I did. We've been together 17 years and married 13 of them. She often jokes that I set the bar high with the first date, and she's not wrong. Tinder. Digitally. What did you do for the first date and how long were you looking for? Went to a bar. I had just been hooking up with girls on the apps for a couple years at that point. This one was cool. I was driving a architectural tour trolley for 9 months. And in April 2002 the 6-foot tall, blonde tourist gets on with her best friend. I do my regular shtick. They laugh. They get off a few minutes later. And I expect to never see them again. 2 hours later as I'm driving up to the Art Institute, there they are waiting to get picked up. The 6-foot blonde continues to laugh at my jokes. They ask me where it's a fun place to hang out tonight. We go hang out with my best bud until 5 in the morning. No sex, no nothing. They leave with nothing but an email address and a half-hearted kiss on the cheek. 2 days later we begin a month of emails, then a month for phone calls. Then I spend a long weekend with visiting her in Florida. The next week she visits me and my family. And that day in June of 2002, 2 months after we met, 5 days in each other's presence, I told her I was done looking and she was the one. She agreed and we've been together 21 years. 3 kids, 4 dogs, 2 apartments, 2 houses, and the rest of my life. I will be the first to acknowledge none of this was up to me. I've been dating since I was 15 years old. I had fully expected I was going to spend the rest of my life single. But when I met her, it was pretty clear that she and I were meant to be together, and I didn't question it. And I know how lucky I'm to say that I still don't. Tinder hookup. Lol. We both got out of long-term marriages and were looking for casual flings after years of no intimacy. The company was a lot of fun and the sex was amazing. So naturally we went from ons to 2 to 3, then basically FWBs. After a few months she admitted to having feelings. I also had feelings, but I was hesitant because we both wanted different things. I wanted marriage and a family with children. She did not. In all her past relationships, her partners were basically children she had to take care of, so she was sick of that. She was a hardcore feminist with a chip on her shoulder. Also one of the reasons I was hesitant. We had a heart-to-heart discussion about what it is we wanted or saw ourselves doing in our future. She liked the pictures I painted and said she might be convinced to adopt. I was okay with that, so we decided to give dating a real try. It is the most honest and healthiest relationship either of us have ever been in. I want to say we both sharpened each other, but I think it would be more accurate to say we softened each other's edges. Now we are expecting our first child in a few months, her initiation, and plan to get married as soon. Tinder. Lol. Asked her what she is doing in 48H, which was Valentine's Day. Online. She approached, and here we are. Almost 13 years later. Same. I messaged him after seeing his selfie on Imgur post about No Shave November. We were long distance for a year, but have been together since 2013. She's my friend's older sister. During their dad's 50th birthday party, me and her had a few much to drink and were hanging at the bar. I don't know what happened next, but I just opened my eyes and I guess we've been making out for some time. We've been together for 10 years now and have 3 kids. She saw me on the quad the first day of welcome week in college. Used my room that she barely knew in high school as an excuse to approach me during a Jimmy Buffett cover band. 1998. Suffice it to say his passing last week for a little emotional for us. Met in high school and we were casual friends for about 8 years and I decided that I had to make a move. I started actively making time to see her more often, and I guess I showed her that we'd be good together because it's been over 15 years now. I approached my husband first. I saw him from across the bar and I knew I wouldn't forgive myself if I didn't at least try. Married 15 years this April. You're extremely confident for a woman. Vast majority of women would never approach a guy in their lifetime. Mad respect. I went to a concert with my best friend. On the way he says I invited this girl. Don't hit on her. I was bummed, cause I thought it was just us, but she seemed cool and smart and kept making me laugh. Since he said, don't hit on her, I figured cool. I can be myself and not care if she thinks I'm weird or not. We talked a lot about music and science and art and all kinds of stuff, and I was like, damn, this girl rocks. She says she's moving across the country in a couple days and wants to celebrate. So we had a one night stand. I fell for her hard. We had each other's numbers and talked for hours every night. 4 weeks. After a month or so she says the new place wasn't working out and she was coming back. And here we are 15 years later. She swore she didn't come back for me, but years later said it was a combination of missing me and the new job being terrible. She was a waitress at a restaurant where I and my best friend, plus his family, ate. I thought she was gorgeous and flirted a bit during dinner. I planned on giving her my number, but when the bill came, she had written at the top, "Do you have a girlfriend?" I was enamored. I gave her my number, but she never called. My friend and I went back the same day the next week, which happened to be 4/20. She said she accidentally threw away the receipt and was hoping I'd be back. I asked her when her shift ended, and we have been inseparable since. The closest I can come to this is my ex-wife. I went to the movies with a big group of friends. She was friends with someone else in the group and met up with us at the movie theater. That's how we met. But I didn't approach her. She approached me. I knew she was interested in me because she waited for me outside the men's room after the movie was over. The whole rest of the group was outside, but she waited for me inside. It was a whirlwind romance, culminating in a bitter divorce with plenty of anger and resentment going on. A truly magical experience, you know? We were serving in the Marine Corps for the GI Bill. I was with 3rd Amtracs. She was a student at school's battalion. I was one of those Marines that worked out on non-PT days. On the 1st of July 1977, as I was getting ready to run, a very pretty woman Marine comes up and asks if she can tag along. We ran 3.5 miles then hit the gym. This goes on for a couple of months. On the 3rd of September 1977, we run, hit the gym, and I walk her back to her barracks. We chat for a bit, and as I was leaving, she yelled at me, "Are you ever going to ask me out?" I was shocked. I was a corporal. She was a private first class. I could have written her up for disrespect. I asked her out. We were engaged on Valentine's Day 78 and married on the 8th of October 1978. Next month we'll celebrate our 45th anniversary. Met her in a bar. She was a bartender, and I was a designated driver. I don't drink alcohol. She had recently relocated to the city we were living in for work. Had taken a part-time bartending job to have a social life. I was rooming in a house with another dude. We were both divorced men. We got to talking. Found out she had barely any furniture. Between my roomie and I we had double and triple of everything. I asked her what did she need. She came over to borrow a sofa and a table the next day. We got to talking, and then and there I realized she was the one for me. That was over 26 years ago. We've been married for 23. We have a fine young man as a son and our relationship is stronger than ever. I met her at her church. I knew she would be my wife years prior. How? I have no idea. Intuition? She is a pastor's kids. I confess my feelings for her on FB circa 2009. We got together, got married, deconstructed everything and left her parents' church. Set free to carve our own path outside of the expectations of others. We have a good life. Work. We would talk on our breaks, and then we started dating. Met at a bar. She was good friends with one of my friends. She had a procession line of dudes sitting on her that night. I got nervous, choked, and left without getting her number. Had brunch with the mutual friend the next day who asked the girl if I could have her number. She agreed. First date was amazing, and she asked me to be exclusive on the second. Thought this was a pretty ballsy move, and that she is a great girl, so I decided to go for it. Been together over 8 years, and in December we'll be married for 5. Mutual friend / coworker wanted us to meet for 2 years, but it never happened. During the friend's going away birthday party, I met my wife to be without any introduction. We met organically and bonded over tequila, travels and music, and we eventually connected the dots that we were supposed to have met several times in the past couple years. Even before we met, she told our mutual friend that she was looking for a DJ scientist with a bulldog, and I was all that. She literally manifested me and my bulldog. Lol, we're coming up on our 5-year wedding anniversary this Nov, and I'm happy to be in a healthy, loving relationship. Met her while drinking at a house party. Flirted / talked to her for a little bit. Told me she had a BF. I put my number in her phone as hot guy from party, still listed as this on her phone, and told her to call me when she's single. She called about a week later, and the rest is history. At work. Sold her some weed. WTF. We met at work. We were work acquaintances, then friends, then best friends, before we actually started dating.